Part of what I'm thinking about with AI is like you really have to train it like it's a human. The AI agent needs to report to a human. There has to be KPIs that we hold the agent to, just like we would a human SDR or BDR. At the end of the day, I think like the best BDR groups are the ones that like have a collective mission alongside of their various selling teams. And they're just really clear around the planning process, and they have a plan and they stick to the plan, but they're constantly iterating around what's working and what's not.
So what are some of your plans for getting adoption? Do we need to even look at change management here, or do you think you guys are ready to fire it up and get started? How's it going, my friend?
Hey, Michael, good to see you. It's been a while.
Good to see you too. It's been a while indeed. 4 years. Anyways, it's great having you on the show. It's so relevant, especially to me. So it's kind of a, selfish, I would say, move just to learn from one of the best, people I know in the space, especially when it comes to, top of a funnel and sales development. So before we get started, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, what you're working on these days, and just what's up in general.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thanks for having me on, Michael. I'm excited to chat with you and learn from you a little bit and riff about all things tech and sales development. So, yeah, my name is Rob Lotzer. Obviously, I've been in the SaaS space for my entire career, and some big logos, most notably Salesforce for a number of years and a bunch of revenue capacities there. And over the past 5+ years, I've spent my time in smaller startups and scale ups on the sales development, so inbound SDR, outbound BDR side of the business. Most recently, I joined Clio, a great Canadian brand based out of Vancouver and also Toronto. And so I lead our North American SDR and BDR organizations there.
That's amazing, man. Canadian company. So what happened? How did you end up at Clio? I'm just curious.
Yeah, funny story. So I exited my previous employer via a RIF back in the summertime last year, and was able to spend some time, with my family, and we had welcomed a baby boy into the world. So it gave me some good perspective, good time to spend with my son. And then I started kind of looking around at, what sort of business I wanted to join. Just went to my network and I started talking to some folks that I've worked alongside of and with throughout the years. And I talked to another great sales development leader that used to be at Salesforce that was in my network, and we were chatting, and he's based in Toronto. And he said, look, there's an amazing company that's born and raised in Canada, and they're looking for a new sales development leader. I think you'd be a great fit. I had never really heard of Clio. I mean, I think I'd read about it a couple times in like TechCrunch and some other, heard a little bit about the growth of the company, but I certainly am no pro in vertical SaaS or the legal tech space. But he hooked us up and got me in contact with the CRO at Clio, who's my boss. And the story is history. So I joined Clio back in March.
Nice, man. So it's still fresh, initiative, I would say, right?
Yeah. Still in learning mode. Although I don't think I can say I'm a new hire anymore. I've tried that in some recent QBRs, and people say, no, you're a pro now. So
that's amazing. So let me ask you a question about Clio. Have you inherited a team, or you're building your team from scratch?
Yeah, so less on the build from scratch. So I've inherited a team. It's about 125 people across mostly Canada. So Vancouver, Calgary, and Toronto. About 30 or so folks on the inbound SDR side, and the remaining folks on the outbound BDR side. So we cover all different segments. And so I've, I guess to use your word, inherited the team. It's a really stellar team. I've got a great leadership group that's dynamic. They're fun. They love to learn. Low ego. I've gotten to know a lot of the individual contributors and frontline managers over time too. And it's just a really great group of people. So I feel very fortunate to be not having to build from scratch. So not to say that there's not a bunch of interesting things to be working on and improving on. So
this is amazing. So you basically own the entire, global sales development, business development organization, and it's very exciting. Congratulations! Clio is a great brand, at least for Canadians like us. We are proud of it, and it's great that we have a talent like you joining the company. Tell us a little bit about how the team is structured, like in terms of like managers you have, or number of BDRs and SDR in terms of ratio that you have. I want to
Yep.
ask some follow up questions regarding this.
Yeah, definitely. So the inbound SDR team, well, a little bit of a history lesson. Clio's vertical SaaS, so selling in the legal space, high velocity, high number of deals, very inbound focused over the years. It's been around for 17 years, so it's certainly not a new scale up story, as you know.
Hmm.
Um, but as the company has matured and gotten to the stage of revenue that we're in right now, and some of the ambitions we have longer term, going up market, and some other potential exciting things that the company's thinking about, it became apparent that outbound and generating pipeline in the various markets was going to be a hedge against inbound funnel, which I think a lot of sales development leaders are thinking about today. So we're moving more to this kind of inbound, outbound, all bound sort of motion a little bit. So today, my inbound team, the SDR team, there's 27 SDRs that manage our inbound pipeline and inbound MQL funnel that comes in from our amazing marketing team. There's 3 frontline managers and then a second line leader that report into me. And then on the outbound BDR side of the business, we have across all of our segments. So we support low end of the market, we call that velocity. Kind of our middle market is our strategic segment, and then mid market is our upper market. And we support across all those different segments. So I have 3 teams in the low end, I have 3 teams in the middle, 2 teams up, and then I have a customer sales team too that's doing cross sell and upsell across our installed base as well. So there's, call it 10 frontline leaders there and 2 second line folks that reported to me. So it's a big group, complex group. Yeah. And I'm sure we'll get into it too, but, we're starting to think about how does AI agents and AI XDRs, where do they fit into the model, and how do they help us become a little bit more efficient and impactful to the revenue engine as well? So that will be
I
a
love
whole
it.
new thing to think about.
Like this is really interesting. You have a large organization that you're leading, and you just threw it out there. So let's just call it and let's just start because it seems like you have this ratio inbound, outbound. There's a lot going on right now on LinkedIn. Everybody's talking about it. AI SDRs. I have some opinion on it, but I want to hear your opinion first. Would you say like the number of headcount we have right now, the same structure you have? Would you expect to see changes, let's say, upcoming year or two with what's happening actually right now in the market?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think look, safe harbor statement. I don't have all the answers and I don't try to pretend that I do. But
Yeah.
what I do know is that we're trying to figure it out. And we have some AI groups within my organization and the broader go-to-market teams at Clio that we're thinking about, where does AI fit in across the inbound SDR funnel and the outbound, prospecting motion. In terms of headcount, I'm going to go into next year like thinking about it in terms of flat year on year with the augmentation of how AI fits in with the humans. Like I'm not in the camp
Mhm.
that AI is going to dispel everything around inbound and outbound. I know like some others have that take, and that's okay. And I'm not here to debate the merits of that, but I think that there's beauty when human plus AI kind of augment one another. And so we're just looking at like our full funnel and trying to figure out where the inefficiencies are and what are our 2 or 3 big bets around AI that we really want to lean into for next year to drive better prospect experience across our funnels, but also more pipeline that moves through the funnel and closes in terms of revenue. So yeah, those are some of my rambling thoughts there.
No, I love that. Like some people have very strong opinion. I had a bunch of guests on the show, and like inbound SDR should die. There is no reason for having it. Some others say no, forever human. We don't know. Nobody knows. And whoever claims that they figured everything out, I think it's just a bunch of, again, ideas, hypotheses. Great, we need hypotheses to grow, but nobody really knows. But let's talk about more. You mentioned about gaps. You said, "Hey, I'm in the camp of augmentations." There are certain gaps within the organizations that we can use AI to do our jobs better. Can we talk about some of the challenges that we can actually solve with AI right now?
Yeah, definitely. One thing that we're thinking a lot about is humans. I I have a personal life. I have a family. I have commitments outside of work and responsibilities, right? So at a certain time, I, for better or for worse, need to close the laptop and move on to, my personal life. Robots don't have that commitment, right? And so I think that there's this 24 by 7, 365 motion that I'm trying to figure out right now, especially in the space that we sell into, right? I'm sure you maybe, have some friends or family members or, colleagues that work in the legal space and are a lawyer or work in a firm. It's different hours, right? So if you're an attorney looking at, a solution like Clio, you might be poking around after 9 p.m., right? Once the
Mhm.
kids go down, and you might be working late into the night or early in the morning on a Sunday and getting things done. The current capabilities that I think about is like our humans. I want them to live their life and have that balance between work and life, but they're not online at those hours. And so when you
Mhm.
talk about time to first contact and speed to interaction, which are metrics that really matter around the inbound funnel, we can't manage those in real time all the time. And so I'm starting to think about how do I, bring in AI agents and things like that to help augment once again the human experience, which I think people still crave. I'm a buyer. I go out and buy things each and every day. I'm a consumer, and so when I get an amazing human experience from a customer support agent or a seller, like I love that experience. I don't always want to go to a chat bot or interface with a an AI agent. It's just not as impactful for me sometimes. So
And look, I'm completely with you. I was buying pet insurance for my dog. And we just moved to the new city. I started poking around, different website, some uglier, some more beautiful, some better information. But at the end of the day, I wanted to reach out and ask some, specific questions. You might say, okay, maybe they could do better, provide better information on the website. But I wanted to chat with someone. I wanted to see how their customer support, even, or, their sales team actually, acts, because how do you pick a partner just because they have a beautiful website or a bunch of marketing materials? Sure, these are great, but when you're purchasing especially a tool, I think there are tons of ins and outs about it. Yes, you can have a conversation with it. I get bored myself. Look, I own an AI company myself,
sure.
but replacing human completely from the process, I just cannot foresee a future. Like many actually push even for it. But I'm curious, like with your specific use case, you mentioned this is great. Yes, after let's say certain time, 5 p.m., 6 p.m., go to your family. AI actually take care of it. In what capacity do you think AI can actually get involved in your environment, or how you envision it? Is it just, hey, let me connect you with my SDR or answer your basic questions or qualify you at least, or full-fledged conversation? So let's say after hour.
Yeah. I've been reading up a lot about this. Jason Lemkin has a bunch of recent activity on his LinkedIn that I've really enjoyed, which I'm sure you see within the SaaStr community and things like that. But I think part of what I'm thinking about with AI is like you really have to train it like it's a human. The AI agent needs to report to a human. There has to be KPIs that we hold the agent to, just like we would a human SDR or BDR. And it's not like I think that the fallacy in the marketplace right now is that I'm going to buy an AI agent and just plug and play, and it's going to fix all of my issues. Like I just don't see that as the way forward. And so what I'm really trying to think about right now across that use case, the hours one is you also need a human managing that agent in real time, coaching it and prompting it, and constantly trying to learn new ways of going to market for that agent. So I think that there's human intervention that still needs to happen to drive impact around just any use case around AI. But when I think about Clio and how we're thinking about AI, it's less about replacing humans and becoming more efficient. It's more about how are we going to use or embed AI across our full funnel, marketing to sales, handoff to CS, right? Like that full 360-degree view. Like how are we going to embed AI to drive more impactful conversations and revenue? It's less about like replacing from an efficiency standpoint from my seat. And so we're really just at the onset of going into like this new world, but we're a group that loves to test and we discuss it a lot. We're constantly trying to figure out POCs and things like that, but we're in the early stages. It's like the first quarter of our AI journey. So it's going to be a fun, very busy experience for us.
Exciting times. I wanted to ask one more question about inbound and then switch to outbound because I have tons of questions about outbound.
Yeah.
It's one of those areas right now that gets crazy with tons of different solutions out there. We're going to get into it. So right now you have a large team, a fairly large team for inbound, right? How do you actually make sure that your reps get enough coaching and training so when they get to conversation with human being, they deliver the best experience within that first touch? What's your plan for this?
Yeah, we are thinking about this manically right now. We just introduced a new enablement leader. Was just hired at Clio. I'm really excited about the impact that individual is going to have, and we've already started having. We're thinking about like the employee experience from day one until, like in my world, like day one as an SDR, and then they go to BDR, and then they go to an account executive role. Like, what's the journey that we take them on as an organization? What skills are we teaching them at what particular moments in time, and how are we up leveling them, and things like that? So we're not just setting them up to win in the role that they're in, but we're also building a great bench of future account executives and leaders and cross-functional partners that want to go into marketing or enablement or sales development, leadership, some of those different promotion paths as well. But so I'm doubling down the work we're doing with enablement and our onboarding partners just to try to reimagine the way that we're doing that. And then we're looking at tools like AI role play solutions. We're starting to like dip our toes into a little bit to see like how do we do live scoring of calls in real time, and how can we give our teams at bats with AI role play ahead of call blitzes, ahead of as a new hire starts. Like, you don't want to just like release them into the wild. You want to give them some at bats ahead of time. It's no different than an athlete before a game stretching and warming up. We want to do the same thing for our team. So yeah, once again, it's a little bit of an augmented experience around partnership with enablement, onboarding, tools like Gong, and then future states like AI role play as well.
I love that. And I really love this because you started talking about your humans, your team, right? I asked actually about like how you actually train them, how do you get them the skill sets they need. And you started by saying, look, it's about them. We are partnering with enablement. We are trying to build that growth path for them internally. So they feel they're included. They have a way to grow in their career beyond what they do today. And I really love this approach. And then you talk about tools that you're using. You're talking about AI role plays.
Do you believe your reps burn leads practicing on client calls? When it comes to giving them one-on-one coaching sessions, just don't have the bandwidth, so you get rid of them altogether? Or maybe you notice that your team spends a lot of time on non-revenue tasks like taking notes, updating CRM, or drafting emails. These are the exact challenges we solve for other revenue leaders like yourself. With SellMeThisPen AI Coach, you can offer your reps role-play sessions at scale while automating one-on-one coaching sessions based on your best practices and methodology. Also, AI will take care of all their non-revenue tasks, like note-taking, CRM updates, draft the email for them, so they can focus on constant improvement while you're focusing on one thing and one thing only: revenue growth. If you're interested in learning more about the clients we are working with or use cases that might be beneficial to you, check us out at SellMeThisPen AI.
Now, I want to ask a question about how you envision adoption, because speaking of again tools like AI role plays, this is new. We are playing in that space too. We see like adoption could really plateau at some point if it's not really focused on a specific use case. When you're onboarding, let's say someone, it's very obvious. Like those reps, they really want to prove themselves. They want to get better. They want to go on field, right?
Yeah.
So you see this massive again usage. But when it comes to a team that's already been there, especially when they get more, tenured, seasoned, on the seat, you might face some resistance again moving forward towards change. Clio is a great company. It's more, young and fast forward thinking, but these are the things that we see across the board. So what are some of your plans for getting adoption? Do we need to even look at change management here, or do you think you guys are ready to, fire it up and get started?
Yeah, it's a really fair question. I think two things come to mind. I'd love your perspective too. One is like you need to have a DRI. You got to have somebody that's directly responsible, right, to take it forward. Somebody that's it's a little bit of their baby, right? Like, hey, we're clear on the problem statement. we're clear on what we're trying to solve for, and we're clear on some of the use cases we want to potentially use this sort of solution for, and that person, you know, is able to take us forward and project manage that. I think you just have to be clear about like the project management of any sort of POC that you're going to run or any experiment that you want to test. And so I think a lot about that. The second thing I think about too on like a human level is for the reps, for the individual contributors, what's in it for them, right? Like if they're going to be using this and getting bought into a new tool or a new way of working, is it going to help them, you know, get better with their conversion rates? Is it going to help them drive higher attainment and participation against their quotas? Is it going to make them more money? Is it going to get them promoted quicker, right? Make them a more dangerous future account executive, things like that. So being clear about what's in it for the reps too. So there's some buy-in, and it's kind of that mutual agreement where it's not management just pointing a finger and saying like, hey, we're going to do this, you need to do it. You know, I think that never works out. So there's a couple things I think of. And then lastly, what are we trying to solve for? Like, that's why I love our RevOps team at Clio, like constantly, our VP and director of RevOps. I'll come to them with like some diatribe around something I want to consider or fix. And they'll say, well, what are we trying to solve for? Right? Like, what impact, if we change this, are we going to deliver to the business? Right. And so I think it's also getting clear on those sorts of things too. Like if you're going to use any sort of tool, you know, like you don't want to be the go-to-market group that's constantly running POCs just because you've heard of a cool tool out in the space, right? Like you would go nuts doing that because there's so much out there right now. So those are a few things I think about, but I turn it over to you too. What do you think about it?
There are actually multiple things, at least based on our experience, especially since last year that we started going up market. We are serving 4 post-IPO companies right now, a bunch of scale-ups. And what we learned so far was that if this initiative, first and foremost, to your point, is not tied to a company-wide why, and this needs to be communicated from the top. CRO comes and mandate this, literally. Even during the POC time, everybody should take care of this. And then leaders like yourself, like directors or VPs, we typically see, and come and reinforce that message and communicate it the way that why makes sense to frontline leaders. And then typically we see some gaps there. We see some of these leaders like show some resistance. So at least this is our approach. We suggest our clients to start with your frontline managers. When you get the buy-in, make sure they learn exactly how to use the platform, and also show them what their reps are going to get so they understand the value beyond that tool. And when it comes to actually doing POCs, one of the other things that we learned was instead of going nuts and give access to 30, 40 reps, even with companies with over 1,000 frontline individuals, say start with some of those early adopters. Get a bunch of people from those type of like up-and-comer reps that are BC players, but they're really trying to change that status. And also get some of your highest performing reps that love to learn, love to lead, and let them actually be the voice and partner with you building this program. So don't only rely on frontline managers or even a CRO who's super pumped about enablement. Get your reps selling this internally. The human portion is absolutely required, and it doesn't matter what tool you are getting with what functionality. If you don't have this, again, set of rules already in place and disengagements from different level of the organization.
Yeah, part of what you just said like really resonated with me too, is like you want to create an environment where, like, I'll call it what it is, like an SDR and BDR world, it's hard work, right? As somebody that's done it, and you've done it, it's really tedious, hard work. It's really impactful work to be done, but it can be a pretty monotonous role if you don't have a group of people that constantly want to A/B test and improve and want their voices heard too. Like when we're thinking about testing these various things, like with these small groups, like that's exciting. If you're a 25-year-old that's a SDR, maybe this is your first or second role, like when the CRO or somebody in a more senior level role comes to you and actively says, hey, we want you to help us prove this out to see if this is a tool that we should invest in because we have some hypothesis, but we'd love your point of view. Like, how cool of an experience is that for somebody early in their career? So I love what you said, and I couldn't agree more.
And I really love what you said. You said those people early in their careers, it's just, even they're excited to use this, that usage might not be necessarily something that you can tie to revenue impact. But this is a journey, and so many companies get this wrong and say, hey, this is a 2 weeks to 4 weeks, POC. Let's look at your tool stack today and tell me about any of the tools beyond CRM that reps got introduced to, and you get 100% adoption right away. It's a journey, especially with something new like this. I would look at early signs. People are excited, people are talking about it. Then you get some of your people that I'd say about the specific use case, people that might actually go on peep, or people who, to your point, they are just getting onboarded. You have a benchmark this way. You said, look, last time we onboarded this 30 people, it took us this much. First deal closes took this much. Right now you have a case built, and they start talking about it. I got ramped here in a month. I'm just bringing numbers. So that itself, do the selling. At least this is what we are seeing right now across different segments and industries. Okay, Rob, let's talk about Outbound. I'm super curious about this one because I'm in the process. I'm actually hiring a bunch of reps, so I'm trying to see what's going on in the market. So Outbound, first question. I know it's easy to say it depends, but which channel today would you say is less risky and less noisy for people to focus on, if they could just choose one channel?
You knew I was going to say it. It does depend on your selling motion, what your approach is, right? If you're PLG versus sales led and all that sort of stuff. The noise is palpable in both, right? Like, and this as a founder and a CEO. I know this as somebody that gets prospected into all the time, and I also go inbound at a lot of places too, because I go check out a tool, or I'm curious about a white paper or something like that. So I get the benefit of seeing everyone's approach, and the good and the bad and the ugly and all that sort of stuff, And we're certainly not perfect at Clio. We're trying to improve and optimize across inbound and outbound. But I think that moving forward, the harder play is going to be the outbound side. So to answer your question, I think the less risky is always the inbound funnel. Once again, like, you gotta have a killer marketing team, and your demand gen partners need to be aligned at the hip, and things like that. So that really matters. But the outbound, I think about it just like the sea of sameness out there and the marketplace around outbound prospecting. And I think what's funny is, like, I remember when I was a outbound BDR at Salesforce, and John Barrows, who I know has come on your pod before, and I learned from him the Basho framework and stuff like that. Like, that was at the time, like, mind altering stuff. And it's like, over time, like, that stuff still really resonates, So I think, like, there's some fundamentals and foundational stuff that really matters still today. That you have to nail, but that's like table stakes, to get somebody's attention, because, like, I think people have, especially buyers in the executive suite, they become a little bit numb to the amount of LinkedIn's, the amount of emails that they get, and, like, even some of the creative things, like a few years ago, like if you sent a Loom video to somebody, or a video that was like earth shattering stuff, and like, but then everybody stole that and started, implementing that, and it became, the same playbook where everyone was like, I'm numb to the videos now, right? And so it's really hard to stand out amongst the sea of sameness. And so outbound it's hard, it's getting harder. So I think, once again, like, you really have to focus on, like, the fundamentals, right? Personalization, relevance. How are you driving impact for this particular person? It's well researched, like with ChatGPT and Gemini and all the tools that are out there. Like, if you don't have some of those things figured out before you're sending an email or making a phone call, like, that's just lazy work. Like, there's no excuse these days. So I think there's a high bar too, if you can really drive impact and relevancy for an executive. I do think that executives want to buy software, but you really have to, like, try to stand out in a different way.
With you. And what's so funny, man? I started this company, when was it? Then I left Hopin 3.5 years ago, 4 years ago, somewhere around that. Before, it was different. Go on LinkedIn, you have a decent profile, you're relevant, you state the problem you're trying to solve, you get a bunch of people saying yes, at least to hop on a call to have a conversation.
Sure.
That's changed. And I want to only talk about, like, what I do and what I practice, rather than just hypothesizing about this, because I want to learn, especially when it comes to outbound. This is a motion that we are starting. So dark social, I know it works. Like, things like podcasts, it builds, again, thought leadership, trust. And sometimes, I hear Some people on LinkedIn say SDRs should really every day send, some post on LinkedIn. Kind of disagree with that because they have a job to do, but it might actually help. But do we have even enough training and enablement in place to really arm them to do this stuff? Because, company brand at the same time, you want to send the right message. But I still think everything is about conversation. Whether it's on LinkedIn, by email, by phone, it's about conversation. And to your point, depending on the type of buyer you're reaching out to. So
Yeah.
what I'm trying to understand is what should we do today? Because it's just a serious question. I'm trying to really figure out, like, should we go omni-channel when we know most of those messages are getting ignored? And I know we've seen this on LinkedIn. Good emails get open. No, good emails get open, but do they really get any responses, or
Yeah.
it's just open rate? So
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think like a lot of times, like looking at like the vanity metrics, right, can lead you down like a bad path because and vanity metrics mean like an open rate or reply rate and things like that. Like at the end of the day, like, are you having more conversations with prospective buyers and your customers? Like that's what the outcome, at least in my world, that we want, right? And like our hope is that like we have a great AE handoff process where amazing account executive group takes that and like the velocity through the funnel happens to revenue, right? Like all those sorts of things that you ultimately want. But like what I think about is, are we booking quality meetings? Are we having and holding those conversations at a higher clip than our competitors, right? It's really hard to do. You mentioned it too, Michael. Like it's very much like a buyer-led journey these days. Like there's so much knowledge out there. Like a potential buyer is doing so much research before they even get to sales at this point. So like you really do have to, keep that in mind. And like what I think a lot about is omni-channel going across like many different touch points. Of course, like that once again, in my opinion, is table stakes. But it's also like the buying committees at prospective clients have just gotten bigger. More people are influencing buying decisions. I think about some of the groups I'm in right now as we're getting ready for 2026. We're evaluating some tools, and there's 10, 12 people in these Slack channels and buying groups, right? Across, RevOps, across enablement, my group, sales, marketing, right? Like there's a lot of people and a lot of different opinions. And so I think, if you're doing outbound and you're a BDR, you kind of have to, it's a game of chess a little bit. You have to like connect the dots a little bit. You have to figure out like what the potential buying committee could look like at a greenfield account. You have to map that out. You then have to take a step further and figure out what they care about, right? Like generally at that company, what each function is going to want in a tool like yours. And then from there, like when you go omni-channel and you're going across phone, LinkedIn, social, other, like email, like handwritten notes, like all the things that you're going to want to do. I think it's also like thinking about not always just trying to think through like what's in it for me. Like as a potential, as a seller, you want them to buy from you, right? Like at the end of the day, it's no secret, but like you have to help them like want to buy your product. So you have to give them a point of view. You have to educate across all those different groups of the buying committee. And you have to have a story that really like takes them on this journey where they say like, oh, okay, that could like it's the feel felt found, right? Like, I feel like there's something there, but I don't know yet. And so like the next touch point is taking them down further down that journey of understanding how your product can help solve a pain for them, right? And I think that's a lot of work to do all of that at scale. It becomes quite tedious, but like the best BDRs, that's what they're doing. They have to be, like it's a little bit more art, right? In that sense where you're kind of like, you're developing, kind of this like journey for a potential buyer and you have to take them on that. And it's less about what I see a lot today is like, hey, I notice you breathe air. Book a meeting with me. Here's my chili piper link, and like, look, like once again, like we're not perfect, as well. Like we're probably like we're trying to get better completely here, but I think like that's not a journey. That's just that's what's in it for me as a seller. That's not taking somebody on a journey that's going to help them solve some pains. So
no, I know what you mean. It's so funny. Like depending on who you're selling to, the size of organization, industry you're in, there are a lot of stakeholders involved, and I think one of the biggest values that BDRs or AEs later when the handoff happens, is that you show and teach that buyer how to actually sell your product internally to different personas that might be involved. And in reality, like, you're running your own organization, but when you're dealing with RevOps, of course, like, you're a senior, you work with other organizations internally, but at least just giving reality check about what you learn as a seller, working with similar buyer persona that you're reaching out to. Hey, maybe this piece of content makes sense to be shared with your enablement team, because some of the stuff they're looking to solve, they're actually there. And I think there's a good opportunity here, a great opportunity for the entire go-to-market teams to actually get closer right now and really support each other. Because if marketing doing an amazing job, you mentioned about, outbound, like everybody's like not only just saying, hey, this is absolutely, outbound. Those touch points, they come from somewhere. Like, it could be events, it could be webinars, it could be the podcast or whatever. And really going after, again, these options are available. So I think we can get creative, and there are a lot of, again, tools out there right now to leverage, but I'm still trying to really focus on BDR as a function and see where it sits. Should they actually map out the entire buying journey and help that prospect seeing that expertise from a BDR, or their job is to mainly focus on the problem, again, your company is trying to solve for that specific buyer persona, and just at least get that level of interest so they have a conversation high level, and then AE can take over and walk them through the journey.
I think the best BDR businesses I've been a part of, and I think back to time at Salesforce, like just CRM is obviously like one of the OGs. Like, I think like best in class, like sort of sales development programs. And I was fortunate enough to learn from that group of individuals. So I just feel very fortunate. And I've tried to take parts of the playbook to other companies like Hopin or Sprout Social or now Clio, right? And not all of it, but some of it, right? I think like the best ones is it's a we effort, meaning it's not like the BDR's responsibility only for outbound pipeline generation within the customer base or prospect base. It's in a shared duty with the AEs. It's a shared duty with CSMs if it's a install account, right? It's more of a we journey around pipeline building. And so I think with your point there, like the handoff process, like I don't think it's just like a BDR, trying to book any sort of like, does this person have a pulse? And if so, like the AE needs to talk to them. Like, that's not the sort of environment that I personally think is going to drive impact in a meaningful way. I want my outbound teams and my pipeline generation teams to feel empowered to be working alongside of their teammates, like an AE that they're partnered with, and like build out like their territory strategy, build out their prospecting strategy. And, there's going to be ebbs and flows and how that goes. Sometimes, it's going to be harder to generate $1 in pipeline. And other times you're going to be like, feeling like you're swimming in pipeline, right? But it's at the end of the day, I think like the best BDR groups are the ones that like have a collective mission alongside of their various selling teams. And they're just really clear around the planning process, and they have a plan, they stick to the plan, but they're constantly iterating around what's working and what's not. And so those are some of the things that I think about there.
I love that. Look, we are almost about time. I'd really love to actually continue this conversation. I'm going to ask a few rapid fire questions, but before doing that, my previous guest, Naina Lero, asked you, how are you enabling and supporting the frontline leaders to be those multipliers of success?
Ooh, geez, that's a good question. And I'm sure my frontline leaders will see this, and so I better get it right. So we just actually, we did an offsite a few weeks ago. So this is like maybe some recency bias, but we talked a lot about, as a collective group, telling stories with data and how to leverage data to drive impact, both like across your teams, like one-on-ones, like very tactically, one-on-one conversations, team meetings, but also more broadly, like across like your monthly business reviews and quarterly business reviews with like the cross-functional teams that we support, where there's more executives in the room and things. And so I'm trying to right now unlock my teams to spend more meaningful time in the data, and then how to interpret that data and like drive action forward for their reps. Like, so we're really spending a lot of time right now with my frontline leaders trying to unlock them in those ways. So we're very oriented around the data, what's going well and what's not. And then they have a clear kind of like decision path after they see something in the data to say like, okay, I see this. Here are the 3 or 4 things I can bring up to my rep to drive a better coaching experience for them. So it's not just beneficial for the frontline leader. It's also like the reps are over time, I think, are going to have better coaching conversations that's rooted and centered in the data that we're seeing. So that's something that's, a focus for us, and we just recently talked about. So
I love that. Telling stories through data. This is a good one. I'm going to steal this from you. Okay, so complete these sentences with short answers. Sales development leaders will be more effective if
they could spend more time coaching and less around some of the tactical things that happen within sales development groups, like rules of engagement disputes and things like that, like actually coaching the reps.
Instead of sell me this pen, sell me this.
So changing your company name. Sell me this cup just because it's
I love it. Sometimes my guests get philosophical. Sell me this change. Sell me this, transformation. Sell me this cup. I love that. All right.
right in front of me.
I love this. How's your career impacted your personal development?
Yeah, I think I've been fortunate to work with a lot of really good people, hard workers, competitive. And so I'm constantly just trying to level myself up, and maybe it's a fear of failure. Maybe it's a fear of falling behind, but I'm also very competitive. And so, I don't like to get beat. So by proxy of working with some stellar folks, I think it's just like force as a forcing function, level me up a bit. So
that's a good one. All right, my last question. We're still trying to finalize with 2 sales enablement leaders. So these are senior enablement leaders. I'm not going to throw names because I don't know which one is going to be first.
Cool.
Do you have any questions for them?
I think it's how are you simplifying the sales enablement like structure for your go-to-market teams so it's really easy to follow and easy to execute on? Because I think, a lot of times like you get people that are doing their day-to-day job, right? Like trying to execute, build pipeline, close deals, all that sort of stuff. And enablement has all these great projects and programs they're working on, but there might be a lack of urgency to get those things done. So I'm struggling with that a little bit too. So it's a little bit of a prioritization question, but would love a little feedback on that. So
that's amazing. All right, I'll send you some videos because we had some great leaders actually talking about this on the show. All right, Rob, look, I really enjoyed this, and it's so good to see you after a long time. If someone wants to reach out to you, can they, and how?
Yeah, for sure. LinkedIn DMs are open. I'm trying to get better with checking them. As you know, we were trying to schedule this. I think I screwed up a couple times, so blame that on my 2 little kids I run around in after work. But yeah, LinkedIn, and then rob.lotzer@clio.com is my email too. So I'm sure that'll open up some good prospecting emails. I look forward to it.
Yeah, let's see. Yeah, I always love to receive actually those emails because you learn something from it. You either say like we're doing amazing or something new.
Some I screenshot and send to my team and say, don't do this, So.
Sell him that cup, guys. He said it. Sell the cup. Awesome, man. All right, guys, that's pretty much it. Hope you enjoyed it, and until next time. Bye for now.
Thanks, Michael. I appreciate it.